Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to episode 88 of Lave Radio, the show that talks about the Universe Elite and the fantastic community that surrounds it. I'm your host, John Stabler, and joining me in the orange sidewinder for this episode are the fantastic Mr. Christopher Jarvis.
Hello, how are we doing?
You were muted again, were you?
A little bit.
Also
Muted
joining...
and eating Maltesers.
Oh, right, okay. Double whammy. Also joining us, Mr. Grant Psycho Cow.
Hello, good evening. Nice to have you back, John.
Glad to be back. I'll talk about that in a bit. Also with us, Ben Moss Woodward.
Hello, and we're all excited tonight for some reason.
Yeah. And last but not least, of course, is Mr. Colin Ford.
Hello, everybody.
Brilliant. So, just a reminder, if you want, you can join us live. We're hanging. Well, some of us are hanging outside Lave Station in game. I think someone's in beta and someone's in the normal game. Are you in a private group or are you in public, guys?
Well, we're going to be in public. I'm just on my way there now.
All open all the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're on their way. So no need to join a private group. And you'll see us hang around Lave Station. We've got an IRC chat channel, which is Lave-Radio on QuakeNet. You could find that by going to the Listen Live page on the Lave Radio website. Or you can tweet us at Lave Radio with questions, and we'll try and answer them towards the end of the show. So, as usual, we'll talk about what we've been up to this week. And who can go first? Colin, what have you been up to this week?
Well, I've been playing a lot of the 1.5 beta. I've been testing the new changes that they've made to the Fer-de-Lance, which we'll probably cover on later on. And also, I'm now up to Top Shift number 52, my video series. And in the latest one, we went over the miniatures game that I demoed at Fantasticon. There's a demo of it on there, showing me and my son trying to completely wipe each other off the board. And
Did he beat you again?
He didn't actually. I got a lucky roll. One of my sidewinders wiped out his Cobra. But I had a bit of bad news because Fantasy Flight are not going to license out the rule set as they did for other games. I think mostly because they had a bad experience with the other games. So I'm having to basically come up with my own rule set for it, which, to tell you the truth, is a little bit more enjoyable working it out for myself.
I guess, and I suppose it means that any kind of shortcomings you've seen in their rule set, you can kind of address yourself.
Yes, there's the one thing that I've absolutely hated in that game has been the swarm tactics of the TIE fighters, and I think I've got a good balance for that.
Oh, good. Grant, what have you been up to?
Well, it's been a long ongoing saga attempting to sell my grandmother's house out from under her, and finally, no, it's not really out from under her, but yes, finally it looks like we've reached the end of the points of where I have to do physical stuff that's kept me tied up and running back and forwards for the last couple of weeks, demented. I've now got the keys of the solicitor, and all the big problems that could have happened have now happened, and I don't give a crap anymore, so I don't have to do any more running around. So I then turned my eyes to getting Dockers Season 2 Episode 1 put together, and ended up swearing at sound files for the most of the day. But I thought I was doing well, because it's run about top 20 page 21 I've managed to get edited up to, which is generally speaking around about the sort of just past the halfway mark. And then I sort of scrolled down the script and realised that this is a 50-page bumper episode. I've got a feeling I'm going to cut all the bits out that I've not got. Just cut that scene. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense anyway. It just doesn't matter, and people won't know. But I'm hoping to have that all up and running very, 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 very soon. TM.
Yeah. Do I see, Grant, on your Steam profile, you've been playing with Star Wars Battlefront?
For about 2 minutes. No, that's the old version.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I jumped into it yesterday just for sort of, old time's sake.
To reminisce.
And then went, God, it's crap.
Fair enough. I didn't know if you could give us an insight into the new one.
No, I did that. I got well, at least okay, at Scouts. I've got the new one on PS4 for my son for his Christmas, so we'll find out then. Temptation to just test it and do the updates was quite strong. And I think we now get away with that. But when you sit on Christmas Day for an hour and a half waiting for a game to update, I think now with wives they kind of don't mind that. I'm just going to test and make sure it works and get all the updates done, and then it'll be all good to go on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Grant, I've seen a few people saying, "Can you turn your volume up?" By the way, mate.
I have done. I have done.
Is this where you say to him that the good news is we bought you the new Star Wars game, the bad news is I've already got you permabanned?
Oh, and I've completed most of it. Yeah, don't worry about it. The Empire's been defeated. But other than that, yeah, it's just been bits and pieces getting organised for. Crikey, we've got the Hutton Truckers convoy with Educating Ed on the 3rd of December, so we've got a lot of background work going on for that as well. So yeah, plenty to keep me busy. Turn it up more, says Starion. Stuff new.
Ben, what have you been doing to entertain yourself?
I wouldn't quite call it entertaining myself, but I have been.
Yes, we would.
I've been making a public fool of myself, shall we say?
More than
as
usual?
I mentioned, even more than usual. As I mentioned in last week's show, my very old Mac Pro blew up the other week, and we have got an absolutely flipping awesome community. Because basically, I'd already had a couple of tweets saying, "Hey Ben, I've got this sitting up in the attic. I've got that sitting up in the attic. Do you want it?" And basically, by the weekend, I was donated most of a working PC from a bunch of different commanders. So I have to give a super massive shout out to Hober Mallow, El Masri, Hansford, and Voidson for donating kit and helping me, do the blood sacrifices on Saturday evening trying to build things. And I have to give a super massive shout out to Commanders Mindwipe, Iceni, and Spike for very patiently talking me through building my PC and asking me a whole load of sensible questions like, have you plugged the power supply into the graphics card? To which I could say, I don't think this graphic card needs any power. It seems to be plugged in, and I can't see anywhere where I plug the power in. It's all fine. Why doesn't my PC want to boot up? Why can't I see anything on my display? Then I go and look at the graphics card a little bit closer after 2 hours. It had an ATX port on the back of it, didn't it? It wanted power. Funnily enough, when I plugged that in, it all worked. So I managed to give Commander Iceni probably one of his best Saturday evenings.
Technical genius, then.
Yes, that's why I'm a software engineer.
To be honest, most of the new video cards now that are coming out will actually give you a display on the screen saying, "Oi, plug me in, I need power."
Well, this video card that I have through, Radeon's software detector thing, thinks it's a 55XX series graphics card. But DX Dialogue thinks it's a 55XX series as well, but it says it's got 4 gigs of video RAM, and there ain't no 55XX series of graphics card that came with 4 gigs of video RAM. They came with half a gig if you were lucky. Some I think a couple came with 1 gig. So I have got no idea what the hell I've actually got.
Isn't there some writing on it that tells you?
No, basically. I do know, however, that thanks to Commander Hansford, I am getting a MSI 7930 or something like that. I'm getting a nice graphics card from Commander Hansford, which should be arriving later this week, hopefully. And that should hopefully see me through to Horizons and things like that. So we have got an absolutely bloody awesome community, and I love you guys all. And just in one final piece of news, my old Mac Pro tower is actually being repurposed by a Commander sub. So even my old tower isn't going completely to waste, and it's being passed down because he wants to go off and do a case mod and turn my old Mac Pro into a PC as well.
Oh,
So
it's
that's
nice
awesome.
It's nice to see all that caring and sharing in the community.
It really did give me super massive warm and fuzzies.
Very nice. So I think Chris Jarvis is probably going to have the most interesting week, haven't you, Chris?
I don't know really, but it's sort of the most interesting. We're coming up on, and we are well within the last 24 hours on my Chaos Reborn audio drama Kickstarter. The Kickstarter that I've been talking about for the last few weeks ends tomorrow morning at 11:30. Again, seconding really what Ben said. I mean, thanks to an absolutely amazing Elite Dangerous community, we are funded. And have been funded since quite early on in the Kickstarter. I mean, having said that, since we hit the initial target, it has been very quiet. I know we talk about a mid-Kickstarter kind of lull, but I think this has been, even more of a lull than that. And I'm not sure. It'll be interesting for me to have a think about, the Kickstarter and what's kind of gone right and what's gone wrong over the time. I think one of the things is once you've hit your target, a lot of the kind of casual traffic that comes by and tends to look at your project and think, "Oh, it's funded. I won't back it." Whereas, obviously, from my point of view, we were originally planning like 4 episodes, and what we've done is we've funded 1. So it's sort of it's a little bit frustrating. I'm really hoping that if there's anyone listening to it now that hasn't had a look at the Kickstarter or thought about backing it, it's a full cast audio drama. In the same sort of vein as what we did with Escape Velocity, but where Escape Velocity is based on Elite Dangerous, the Chaos Reborn audio series is obviously based on Chaos Reborn. We're fully funded for 1 episode. We're sort of 30% of the way to funding episode 2. And there's an update to put out today. I mean, there's a certain amount of vagueness over budgets. I had sort of said that the stretch goal was £5,000 to get to episode 2. It might actually be that the money is kind of there or nearly there on the Kickstarter to do both episodes. It's really hard to tell until we actually get into booking actors. So I have said to my people that are sort of USB card backers that if we do manage to make both episodes within that budget, those backers will get both episodes. Even if we don't actually technically hit the stretch goal. But I can't make any promises about that because I don't actually yet know whether we'll be able to make episode 2 with the amount we currently have on the Kickstarter. That said, if you would still like to back it, I think it's going to be a great audio drama. It's a great game. There are some options there to get the USB card and the game, or a download of the audio and the game. So if you haven't got the game already, there's a way of doing that. And there's also, like any other Kickstarter, we've got all kinds of stuff that we're going to create once for the Kickstarter backers, and then they're going to be gone forever. Things like signed script fronts and cast photos and all those sorts of things. So if you do want to take a look at that Kickstarter, as I say, it does end Wednesday this week. That's tomorrow at 11:30 in the morning GMT. And you can have a look at that at tinyurl.com/chaos audio. Do please come and join us for it because it's going to be, I think it's going to be a brilliant audio drama. And essentially it's wizards fighting each other for control of a magical land and sending dragons after each other, and unicorns and goblins and giants and dwarves. So thank you so much to everyone who's a Lave Radio listener and an Escape Velocity fan, who's kind of brought us to this point where we've got a production budget. But there is still more funding needed. So if you haven't backed it yet, please do come and take a look.
Cool. Well, in case people didn't realise, I haven't been on the podcast for a while. Can you guys remember the last time I was on? It was,
Sorry, who are you again?
Ago. Yeah, exactly. It does feel like such a long time ago. I don't know if you actually told the listeners what was wrong with me or where I was. But basically I had a dental abscess, and I won't go into all the gory details, but I was quite poorly for quite a while, and then I had some antibiotics which I reacted to, so I was sicker for even longer. And then I was meant to be on last week, but it clashed with my Cardiff Skeptics event, so I couldn't do that after, but I'm here now. That's the main thing. So
I think we told everyone you had some sort of knob rot.
Nobra. Oh well, what's the difference? That's fine. Or it's usually space crabs, isn't it? That's the running gag. So yeah, I'm back now. What have I been doing this week? I have actually managed to play some Elite. I actually made a lot of money in bounty hunting, and I now have a Fer de Lance, and I have a courier. But we'll probably talk about that later. I think Colin said.
Oh, you didn't hear about the full wipe for Horizons then?
Oh, the full wipe. Oh no. I might not have been in touch with all of the news, but I think I'd have heard about that. The forums would have exploded probably.
Yeah. Although David Braben is asking some people to do a full wipe for the beta.
Well, I've got no
because
problem
apparently
doing
there's one of the things he said is that there's a player start position that starts on a planet surface, and they'd like some people to test that, which could be interesting.
Sounds good to me.
As long as I don't accidentally wipe my main account. Although not that I'm exactly the world's richest commander, but anyway.
What ship are you in at the moment, Jarvis?
I'm still in my Cobra Mark III. But I have spent a lot on it. I mean, I'm coming up to the point where I used one of those. I used that Coriolis.io site a long time ago to spec out what I thought was a kind of maximum spec Cobra Mark III, and I'm sort of steadily working my way towards the Cobra being basically sort of as tough as it can be for a Cobra.
Yeah, the A-rated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this week's going to be a bit of a slow news week, given that Horizons was meant to be released today, but it's been delayed until Monday, which is the 30th.
Yeah, I don't like to be a cynic, but did anybody expect that we would be getting the Horizons beta today? I mean, I know there's that little part of you that still believes in Santa, right? But, I mean, almost every beta so far, not uniformly, but most of the betas, particularly the major betas, have been at the very least not released until the end of the day that they said it was going to be released. And actually, beta 1.5 we haven't had long, and to the best of my knowledge, 1.5 hasn't gone live yet. So I think it was always very optimistic to imagine that Horizons beta would be coming today. I'm slightly surprised it slipped to next Monday. I thought it'd be the end of this week. But I mean, there's lots of people. Someone on Twitter was saying they couldn't understand why people were complaining about the fact that they'd taken a day off work today to play the Horizons beta. And it's like, why did you do that? That seems like madness.
If anything, you should book the day off after, just in case of the late release or something like that. I
mean, I'm not criticising Frontier. I'm not saying that it's in any way Frontier's fault. But I just think there are always genuinely reasons why betas slip, and I think it's very hard to, particularly on a project like this, where they're doing effectively 2 releases at once. I think it was always going to be very hard to keep that on time.
I might have believed them more if it wasn't for the 1.5, because there seemed to be such a short, window between 1.5. I thought, I think.
Well, 1.5 and 2.0, they're not the same thing, but they're going out the same day. They are essentially the same release.
Are they? Oh, I thought
1.5
was coming out first.
No, they're coming out the same day.
Okay.
Just the only difference is that 2.0 is going out to Horizons people, and 1.5 isn't.
Well, that's a whole extra thing they have to test then, because that's branching releases to different user bases.
I don't know if it actually is. I suspect. I know nothing about how the game is released, but I would not be at all surprised to find out that actually the version of the game that we download, that we get on the whatever of December, is going to be 2.0, and then there's going to be a little thing that says, if Ben has bought Horizons, let him go and do these things.
I don't think that can be quite right, though, just because we'll come on to this a bit later, but there's different minimum requirements for Elite Dangerous and Elite Horizons.
Yes, but you'll only get those different specs when you actually get down onto the planet. It's the planets that need the compute shaders.
Yeah, but
So
it's a
if
whole
you
lot
can't-
because well, like I say, we'll come on to it. But I mean, Horizons is going to be entirely 64-bit based,
Yes.
so you're going to have a completely different installation to someone that's running the 32-bit version.
That is true, actually. Yeah, that one is.
But I mean, I suppose going back to what I was saying there, the thing that I'm interested in is the Horizons release date set in stone, and does a delay to the beta mean that either the release date is going to be delayed, or is it going to compress the public testing time? Because neither is particularly good news.
Well, they haven't actually officially said when Horizons was going to be released. The community has basically assumed that it will be the same time as the release event last year, and also the release of the full going live date as of last year. Which, if you look at their schedule or their proposed schedule, would have matched. However, I think that in this case, they've obviously hit a couple of snags. The renderers have been a bit of a problem, as has some of the ground clearance of the ships, surprisingly enough. And they've been, it's obviously taken them a little bit more by surprise, and compressing those kind of things. If you've ever been involved in development and had to deal with a crunch, they're going through a crunch at the moment in order to get this out. So
Oh yeah, totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when crunches happen, I've normally found that there is an awful point where you suddenly realise no matter how hard you crunch, you ain't going to hit that date.
That's fair.
Okay. Well, I suppose we should talk about some of the the actual announcement. They said David Braben announced the delay, saying the team's working very hard, but there's been some issues. Very apologetic, but not quite ready for a proper beta test yet because there's some blocking issues. And I think there was a Q&A, was there not?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was the question was I'd be interested to know about the blocking issues, because quite often you feel a bit detached from the developers when they're just announcing delays, and it was actually quite interesting to see them actually give a bit more information about what kind of problems have held them up, and David Braben went into a bit of detail about that. Talked about some of the glitches when traveling down to the surface of planets. But the good news is that there is a fix for that. It's just a case of committing it and testing it.
Yep.
What else? Blocking issues with gameplay, again, mostly all fixed with some of the bases. And then you gave an example as a bug where they found where generators and defensives was not properly hooked up to the relevant part of the base, and security doors were not working correctly. Doors? What do we need doors for? I'm not so sure.
You need doors to go in.
Oh, actually, big. You mean big doors? Not like Sorry, when I think door, I think a door like a person walks through. And I thought, well, we're not going to be getting out of our buggies, are we?
No, I think some of the bases might have a sort of airlock type door on the outside when you drive in.
Yeah, there was some texture streaming problems. I saw what he said, that there was some polish issues. When I first read it, I thought he said there was some Polish issues, and I thought, well, I was like, I don't understand, Polish in space or something, but no, it was Polish issues. And yeah, I did. That was one of the things that I noticed from the video he did, where some of the textures were ridiculously low res, but I thought it was obviously a streaming issue, and that's what it was. And they said that that alone wouldn't have held back the beta, but it's fixed now anyway, so it will be fixed when it comes out. So, bit of good news. I mean, personally, I'm not too bothered waiting for Monday. I mean, I didn't book any days off to play it. I think I've given up trying to do that now. I think maybe I might have done that back in the early alphas and betas, but I've been burnt too many times.
Yeah, quite.
Okay, and the second... Oh, go on.
No, I was going to say there's an interesting point here about the fact that some of the craft don't actually currently have enough clearance between the underside of the ship and the floor to actually deploy the Scarab. It just interests me because one of the things I've been working on the last couple of days, some of the listeners may know, I've actually also been running a crowdfund to bring escape velocity back, and because we hit our milestone target for commissioning some art, I've been talking to some artists about producing some sort of a new escape velocity artwork. And one of the things that I really want is the Merlin. Now the Merlin doesn't exist in Elite Dangerous, so we're having to kind of think about what the Merlin would look like if it had gone through the design process that these reimagined ships. And one of the things that's come up is landing, because actually the wings on the Merlin are so low, they're actually too big to support any of the kind of standard landing gear that any of the other Elite Dangerous ships have. So it's just really interesting that this other thing has come up about the fact that actually when you talk about taking these ships and putting them down on the ground and doing different things with them, all kinds of different issues come up. I mean, I wonder if the game doesn't even let you, like, I wonder if you can land on a piece of ground that's technically like a bit of a bump, because then even though your feet have got clearance, actually where the SRV comes out is blocked. I wonder if the game always makes you land on ground that is either flat or convex to get around that issue.
Well, it might be a case where they just say, right, you've landed, but you're unable to deploy SRV.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. And it's interesting as well. They're saying here in this Q&A that the Scarab, the gun turret retracts when you drive under a ship. That explains what that noise was we could hear when the Scarab was driving under the Imperial cutter the other week. And I said, "Oh, I wonder if that's the hatch opening for the SRV." But actually, it sounds like it's the gun turret sort of undeploying, if that's such a word.
Retracting.
That's probably the best.
Yeah, talking about clearance, I've noticed some of the ships in outfitting, there's still some situations where guns are going through the floor. I noticed this on
really?
the Fer de Lance. Yeah, I put on, I think it was a massive plasma accelerator, huge plasma accelerator, and it went through the floor. So I'm hoping that they're still looking at stuff like that and trying to fix it. I mean, what can you do though? I mean, normally you wouldn't worry about fixing the landing gear for such a large weapon because you're only going to have it out in space. So I'm not sure what they can really do about it.
Interesting.
Apart from having all of the ships up on, what do you call it? Up on, like you have with a car. You drive into a garage and they take them. That could be quite funny. And the guy underneath with a spanner and a torch. So yeah.
I was going to say, how many light years is it on a Cobra Mark III you're meant to change the oil filter? I've lost track.
Actually, you'll be
I had
able
the
to
pollen
find
filter
that.
done last time I was in.
You'll be able to find that out because the ship integrity drops a
Okay.
lot at the moment. And I must admit, when the ship integrity of your ship drops below 30%, I've begun to notice that it really is a bit of a bone rattler from that point on. Yeah. So there's a word to the wise.
You actually let your ship get that low? I mean, I'm kind of in the, in the frame of mind that as soon as I land, the first thing I do is just repair absolutely everything.
Oh, well, you see, this goes to prove that you've not done the hut and run. The hut and run rips your internal integrity apart. And half the time when you land at Hutton Orbital, you've got an integrity of 10, maybe 20%.
Oh,
and there's nothing you can do about it, John. That no amount of teacup will be able to sort that out.
What about an auto repair?
Actually, I don't know whether or not the auto repair actually fixes the integrity.
I don't think it does.
Or is it just hull? It's just the hull, is it?
No, it's not even hull. It's internal modules.
Oh, okay. Fine. Who wants to do the next question? Seems as Chris Jarvis stepped up for the last one.
Ooh.
Is that school? Does somebody else want to have a go?
Yeah.
Maybe Ben at the back. Stop eating your pens.
It's not my
Stop
pen.
chewing
I'm eating a flapjack.
Stop chewing the glue and looking at the squirrels out the window.
Which question are you on about? Are you talking about the transition? No, you're talking about the 1.5 thing, the Furrylands.
The Q&A. Yeah, no, the Q&A stuff. I think the next question in
Well,
this document.
we've talked about that as well, though, haven't we?
What?
Yeah. Is the approach from Super Cruise down to ground truly seamless? If so, will improvements to the current Super Cruise? That's not even English. If so, will there be improvements to the current Super Cruise transition also? Okay.
I think I see what they're saying. The problem.
Yeah. So basically, is it
yeah.
seamless, and will there be any kind of transition? Well, I know for a fact that some developers have been face planting it into planets today when they've been testing. That's how seamless it is.
Well, it says here that there's a small... When you drop from orbital cruise into normal flight, that's a short transition as there is dropping from Super Cruise.
Yes.
So I imagine it being like Super Cruise, you're approaching at high speed. Because when you think about it, meters per second, the maximum meters per second, that's what, Mach 2, Mach 3?
Less than that, I suspect.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw in David's video that he was having to boost, and he's only going up 230, 240 normal speed that we go on land.
Mm.
Sorry, normal speed that we go in space.
Yeah, so you can imagine there's this little transition period. But I think if you come out of orbital cruise at a higher altitude, it'll be like coming out of Super Cruise almost 200 kilometers away from a station.
Yeah,
you'll just have to
do it. It just takes a while.
Yeah, you just have to re-engage your orbital drive and then carry on until you get something meaningful or closer to the planet. I mean, we've already seen in one of the sneak peeks them actually doing a full draw out. So there you are on the planet's surface on a buggy, and they pull all the way out to orbit, to Grant's potato, if you see what I mean. But
yeah,
you watch it.
I think it's more an instancing issue of once you actually drop out of Super Cruise itself, you have to then be instanced with local commanders, and I think that's where I don't think it's necessarily a game issue in terms of the seamlessness. I think it's just about matching you to a server, and that's what's taking kind of crazy amounts of time. Sorry, that sounds rude. I don't mean it to.
But even then, I'd say maybe takes a second or something like that. A couple of seconds. I know sometimes when jumping in from hyperspace, yes, that does take too long. But I don't even think that when you come into a station, it takes that long. It's like
it varies.
5 seconds.
I think it really varies. I think sometimes I've come out of Super Cruise, and it's the point where you start to really notice, hang on a minute, I've still not dropped out of Super Cruise. I think that's where it's an issue. But yeah, I don't know really.
And there's a good, interesting question, because I was wondering about this for 1.5. Sinks asked, any idea when the database instance snapshot will be taken? He obviously wanted to, make some changes to his account. Apparently, it's already happened. They're going to be using the one that they took prior to 1.5. So.
Oh, damn! I'll still have my Python then.
Yeah, so you'll just have to resell your Python if you want to get another Ferdinand or whatever it is you're up to. And yeah, oops, he just made an announcement in that that there's going to be a place, well, you've already mentioned it, that you can launch a starting position that's actually on a planet. So that was his kind of oops announcement.
Will it be
Pretty
the
cool,
same?
really.
Will it be the same starting position as there was on Frontier? Wasn't that Ross something or other?
Ross 154, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh no, hang on, that one had an atmosphere, so it won't be.
I was going to say, unless something horrible's happened to that planet.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, if you think about how awesome the Outpost beta was when you when you rose off the pad, and there's a planet right in front of you, I can only imagine how awesome it's going to be to log into the game and then suddenly come out on the surface of a planet. It's just going to be spectacular again.
Looking forward to it a lot.
Gush driving engaged there.
Oh, crikey! Well, never mind that. Get your Oculus. The Oculus going again. Windows 10 is a pain, but I've got a guide to getting it to work, so I will report back if it works. And looking forward to that. Oculus on Horizons is just going to be epic.
I'm going to be doing the same with Google Cardboard, and I'm looking forward to doing that. After the last test that I had of it, it's actually improved quite a bit. So, yeah, it's not up there with Oculus Rift level yet, but maybe when I upgrade it to a new phone, the resolution will be a lot better.
But the one thing that I'm going to be gutted that we're not going to be able to do, and you mentioned it, is that ROS 154. When you first started on that save point, it was like the first thing you noticed was the wind blowing.
Yeah, true.
But we're not going to have that, unfortunately. So never mind.
Well,
I don't remember that. Is that because I was on the Amiga?
Yes.
No, it's on the
No,
Amiga.
it's on the PC as well.
I'm thinking about Frontier Elite 2 now. Yeah, I'm sure when you started on the planet, you could just hear.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a pretty bad synthesizer
Oh, the sound.
effect. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you meant there was something visually blowing in the wind. I was thinking, well, that's better than the version of Frontier Elite 2 that I had.
The only thing that is blowing in the wind around here is the answers.
Well, I just remember that I don't know if anybody else did this, but Frontier Elite 2 on the Amiga, I used to set it to like a really low detail so I could play it with a good frame rate. In fact, when the Uncle Art people came to LaveCon, I actually changed the settings on their Frontier that was running the demo because they were like, oh, the frame rate's a bit low. I'm like, oh, I can fix that. And I went in and tweaked everything. But I remember what I used to do every now and again is set things. I used to basically set my ship in hover and then set all the graphics to max just to see what it could look like. And ROS 128 was one of the places I used to do that. I'd go and fly into one of those domed cities and park over some of the skyscrapers and just leave it in hover and then just turn everything up and be like, wow, it's a whole futuristic city on a planet.
Yeah, I think I always played it with max settings on and a massive 12 frames per second. Back then it seemed normal, but these days it's like anything less than 60 is terrible. You can't play it; it's completely unplayable.
I'm managing okay in 24 and above.
So okay, we're moving on now to 1.5, which was.
Do you want to do that, or we've got another Q&A with David a little bit lower down?
Oh, okay. We'll merge the two Q&As together then. So the first question was, when's first-person mode? And a pretty straightforward answer. It was an answer that I think nearly anybody who's been following Elite knows. It's a future season.
Yeah, some of these questions you do wonder whether or not they were leading questions, because we do know that the other game is its Alpha 2 is due to drop, so a lot of people will be putting in a lot of comparisons into this.
Well, they're welcome to at the end of the day. I mean, that other game, I don't know. I've always tried to be cautious about it and wish it the best, but I've just been nothing but disappointed by it so far. So it may change with the beta.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what Alpha 2 can bring. But
Alpha 2, sorry. So they're not in beta yet. It's still Alpha.
No, it's Alpha. This is this. We're going off on a tangent, and we promised we wouldn't do that. So.
Okay, we'll leave that there then. Okay. So the next question, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit. Can 32-bit users get a refund? So they finally bitten the bullet. I mean, they said back when they released the first alpha that there was a lot of 64-bit mathematics happening, but they could a 32-bit machine could handle it fine. So what has changed now with Horizons that means that 32-bit machines can no longer hack it?
Oh, it's got to be the planet. What's got to happen with the rendering of the planets, hasn't it? I mean, if you're going down to that level.
Yeah, sorry. I think I saw another answer about this somewhere in one of the updates. They were talking about the shaders. It's kind of a knock-on. It's not particularly necessarily they need 64-bit. The issue they've had is that they're using some shaders that require DirectX 11, and they've found with their current code base that DirectX 11 on the 32-bit version of Windows is, I think in their words, a bit unpredictable and unstable. So I think they're going, I don't think it's necessarily 64-bit is required for the new code. I think it's just that they're dependent on some Direct 11 shaders, which they're having trouble getting working in 32-bit. So to them, it seems to make sense just to say, let's move the whole thing over to 64-bit Windows and be done with it.
And it was something like zero, according to their statistics, something like only 0.5% of people are even running a 32-bit OS of their surveys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bear in mind those surveys are based on what the game captures from the PCs of the people running it, so it's got to be pretty accurate. But I mean, I'm on Windows 7, which is knocking on a bit, and I've got a 64-bit install of Windows, so it's not particularly a state-of-the-art requirement.
Well, if you take that percentage and apply it to, I think they said last count there's about 500,000 people playing Elite Dangerous. That's 250 people. It's quite a small number, and maybe it's just easier for them to refund people who've bought Horizons and won't be able to play it, and just say
lessons learned from Offline Gate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I do recall hearing something along the lines of, we could get it done, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, it's not worth pursuing these bugs for a couple of people who have still got this. It's easy just to say, go get yourself a 64-bit OS, guys, and then everything's fine.
Next question. Okay. Go on.
I was just going to make a slightly facetious comment of how difficult it is to upgrade from the 32 to
that's actually a question I was going to ask you.
7.
I was going to actually ask. I know with Windows 7 64, I can upgrade. I get a free upgrade to Windows 10 64. But if I have Windows 7 32, could I get Windows 10 64?
Well, you haven't been able to do that in the past.
That makes sense.
You haven't been able to do that in the past because what's happened is they've always said, no, 32-bit goes to a 32-bit upgrade.
Is there even a 32-bit version of Windows 10?
I don't think.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Well, I guess that's one for Microsoft. And if it is, you can get your Windows 7 32 up to 64-bit, then you can then
have the joy of Windows 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think is a lot better than some people are giving it credit for.
To be honest, I've not tried it, so I can't say.
Well, what I'm more interested in is if DirectX 11 is going to be a requirement, does that compound the problems with Mac support in terms of, because I know that they're waiting on, because it's OpenGL that's an issue for Mac.
It's not technically DirectX 11 that they need. They need compute shaders, which is in DX11, and it's also in OpenGL. I want to say 3 point something or other. It's in a version of OpenGL that's about 2.5, 3 years old. Just that Apple haven't bothered upgrading their version of OpenGL to use it.
Yeah.
So I put the ball for that pretty firmly in Apple's court, to be perfectly honest, which is a shame.
Fair play.
Okay, the next question was, can we get bookmarks in the Galaxy map? Now, I don't think David Braben said yes. He just agreed that it would be nice. Because obviously, my brother does this. He leaves sidewinders in various stations as a way of kind of reminding him that there's something interesting there. So, I mean, how do you guys play it? I mean, do you quite often go back to places like that, places of certain interest? Because I kind of just focus on where I am, what I'm doing, and then I kind of, it's like almost like surfing the web. I just move on all of a sudden, go somewhere else and get completely absorbed by that, and then I just forget about, what I was doing before. But do you guys find yourself going back to the same places other than Lave?
Well, at the moment, I hate to admit this, but I do have a kind of spreadsheet with all the rares in there, or I did have until I found that there's a website out there that does that for you, and I'm constantly looking up this hang on a second. Just let me bring it up. The the INARA Elite Dangerous Companion website, which I've found to be a very useful tool and very comprehensive help guide to finding where everything is.
Okay, so that's
And just looking now, they're actually hosting us.
Oh, that's
Hi,
nice.
Enra. Thank you.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well done. So you do find yourself going back. What kind of reasons do you have for going? It's just for rare runs, then, is it? Is that what you're saying?
For rare runs, and there are a couple of places which there is a very profitable trade route. So that if I've gone and lost a Python and I need to quickly start getting some cash up, then I can head back to that trade route, grind it for a bit, and then before you know it, I'm ready to head out again.
You don't want to share this amazing trade route with the listeners, then?
No, because it's actually quite fragile.
By the way, Jarvis.
Yeah.
Jarvis, apparently Commander Kurlek's leg is incompatible with 32-bit OS. So,
His leg, yeah.
His leg's not so good with it, apparently.
I think it uses some old Fortran code or something like that. I think you need
oh, you should know.
One of these. Yeah, one of these contractors that's constantly on the verge of retirement is what you.
It's not COBOL, is it?
It's something like that. Yeah.
I hate to see the working storage section for that one.
Yeah.
Ancient programmer jokes. Do apologise.
Yeah. Apparently, Oculus are going to bring out a demo where you get to fix Kurlek's leg in a lab.
But you got that surgeon simulator, don't
awesome.
you?
Surgeons. Oh yeah, where you get to just rip out people's hearts and throw them around. Yeah, maybe you could do that with Kurlek's leg.
I think I've been having such fun with Invisible Ink. If people get me thinking about Kurlek's leg, I'm going to be thinking, what kind of other cybernetic upgrades could Kurlek have? That'd be amazing.
That sounds like such a euphemism now.
Kurlek's leg. Do you have a bad case of Kurlek's leg? No, it's just the way I'm walking.
Okay, we'll move on. Horizons, will it have SLI support? David Braben says he assumes so, although he's not tested it personally. Come on, David. You should be testing these things. But yeah, I can't imagine that it wouldn't have SLI support. I mean, how many of you guys actually have Crossfire or SLI? None.
No.
Okay, we're all single card people. Okay, fair enough.
Technically, I could. I just don't have the slots open or an SLI cable on me at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't see the point, basically.
Will there be more land vehicles during Horizons? And the answer is yes. So, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? You get presented with this cool buggy or whatever you want to call it, and no one's even played it yet to see how fun it is, and people are already asking about if there's going to be other ones. Fine. Are there any plans for a hoverbike SRV? Guys, I mean, surely that hoverbike will have to have a big dome over it, unless you're going to permanently go around with your...
You can wear your rem lock.
That's like a radical hoverbike where
I'm thinking like a speeder bike from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
That would be so awesome. I'd love that.
Well, and bikes are more fun in GTA, aren't they? You can get more air on them and they go faster. So. Okay.
These are bikes with thrusters on them, for God's sake. What can you... Ooh. Yeah, they're like super squee. They would be great fun.
Which David basically says a lighter SRV is certainly possible. So that's not a yes to the bike, unfortunately. No, now we're getting into if I purchase Horizons on the PC and then run it on the Mac, will I still have access to my Cobra Mark IV? So yes. So I think that's kind of cool, the fact that you buy it on one platform, and then you have it on, you can use it on your Mac as well, which is kind of cool. So there's no need to actually buy the game twice. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's just that you can't use Horizons at the moment on the Mac, but they are talking about apparently. So it's something along the lines of, let's say I was to land on a world in my PC, and then go over onto a MacBook Pro or whatever, pick up my Mac, and then I'll basically we get the option apparently of you log into the game and it says you're on a planet, you can't be on the planet on your Mac. Do you want to go into orbit or do you want to remain where you are but not log in? So it basically goes off and gives you the option of what you want to do.
Okay, so they've already implemented that. Okay.
Apparently that's already there, so at least the Mac users, if they land on a planet on the PC or in boot camp or whatever, they're not completely shafted.
Yeah, I mean, doing this kind of tiered content like they've done, where people don't have to have Horizons to carry on playing, it just creates so many headaches, I guess, for the developers in terms of having to think about situations such as that.
It does, but it's the kind of headache that MMO developers have had to be making for years. So it's not new.
Yeah, I guess. Well, at least for stuff like World of Warcraft, if they rolled out new content, they just rolled it out to everybody, and then they just put in like things like you can't fly to this island unless it seemed a lot easier to kind of what do you call it, ring fence certain areas of the game.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, they are being shot in the foot a little bit, where Mac users have to be separately ring fenced from PC users and things like that. But that's why I think that basically it's essentially going to be the same build of the game. Just you can't get on the planet, even if you have physically downloaded them.
Yeah. Is it going to be a long wait for Mac owners before they get Horizons?
I don't even know if Mac owners will get Horizons, to be sadly honest.
Oh, really?
I have no idea. I don't know whether Frontier are going to bother trying to find a way of doing the planets without compute shaders.
Okay.
Or maybe Frontier are in negotiations with Apple, trying to find out, and they'll find out that the next version of macOS 10 will finally and eventually upgrade the OpenGL, and then they'll start developing again Horizons for that. We just don't know.
Yeah. Well, as I said, if you buy a Mac, you deserve everything you get.
I feel sorry for them. I mean, I really do. I know my brother-in-law bought his Mac, has a Mac, and he bought Elite, and he's been loving it. He went up and bought the lifetime expansion pack because his Mac Pro is technically it's a very powerful little machine. He gets ridiculously good frame rate and things like that, but because Apple are a bunch of words that I'm not allowed to say. Oh, it is after 9 o'clock. But a bunch of wankers and don't bother upgrading their operating system. He can't actually play Horizons, and I think that is a disgusting situation for Apple, as I've already said. And I feel sorry for Mac owners because of that.
Yeah. Okay, so next question was, when landing on a surface, will the ship's thrusters blow away dust from the surface? Yes. I'd hope so. I mean, the game's pretty good in terms of...
We already saw that actually in David's video today, that it released on Sunday evening. Or Sunday late.
I've still not heard anything about tyre tracks, though.
I didn't see any tyre tracks either, no.
Oh.
No drawing willies in the sand.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Breaking my immersion.
We won't bother with the Sandro question, but... well, it's just, it's more of a request, isn't it? Give the developers a break.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, can you tell us anything related to docking clearance with Planet Outposts? Do we require docking clearance? What happens if I land my ship inside a base without it? Is that allowed? So, just like stations, you need landing clearance. If you land outside the station, like David did in his sneak peek, then you don't need to do this. But if the station is hostile to you, it might attack you. So that's just a confirmation there. So hang on, maybe this is... Oh no, this isn't related to the Mac. So people were asking about 32-bit OS again. they want to keep their pre-order until they upgrade their OS. Is there an option to disable the Horizon section? But David says basically that's what happens anyway. If you try and go down to a planet, you'll get a message saying no. Okay, so newsletter. Does somebody want to talk about newsletter 100? I'm just kind of sick of my own voice.
Just let me bring it back up again.
It was nice to see David holding an Imperial mug again, because I think he was spotted with a Federal mug, and I was, to be honest, I was sickened just at the sight of it. I thought, what a turncoat.
Oh dear.
So they at least announced the. I'll talk about the PC specs while you guys bring up the newsletter. So the minimum specs now are OS, Windows 7, 8, or 10, all 64-bit.
Yep.
They're still on the quad-core CPU. I mean, they've said this has been the minimum all along, but I know there are some people that use dual cores. They're just like really fast dual cores.
Yeah.
Memory 6 gig. NVIDIA GTX 470, AMD 7240, so that's DirectX 11, and just the usual broadband and 8 gigabytes hard drive space. And then they recommend an i7 3770K quad core. So I'm kind of really bad on hardware and chips and things. Where is that about, in terms of performance? Is that like a mid-range CPU, or is that quite a high spec?
Well, personally, these days it'd probably be mid-range. You're still looking at maybe £200-300 for if you're buying that separately. So it's a bit of a big ask sometimes.
Okay, so
yeah, I've honestly, from my own point of view, I've been a bit confused about whether or not I make the minimum specs or not. I think because when I put my PC together, I bought a fast i5 rather than an i7. So I think if you look at the, I think I meet the minimum specs because I've got a quad core. It's like 3.1 or something like that. So.
That sounds about the same as I've got. I've got 3.1 gigahertz i5 processor in mine, and so I know that I think you and me, Mr. Jarvis, I think we're over the minimum specs as far as the processor is concerned. However, looking at the graphics card, yes.
Well, they say the recommended graphics card is a GTX 770. Well, I'm on a 670, so that's a little bit more than I have. So it looks
same here. I'm on a GTX 660, so I'm even lower down the pecking order than you, John.
So basically, you're between minimum and recommended, but you should still be fine.
Yeah, but I think I might actually be tempted to ask Santa whether or not an NVIDIA GTX 770 or greater could be headed my way.
Well, I'm fully intending to buy the HTC Vive at the moment, so I'm going to need to upgrade my graphics card.
Are you looking for a Titan or something, or what you're looking for?
Well, they haven't. I mean, I know the Oculus has said that. Is it a 970 they've said for that? But I don't think HTC have actually said what the minimum graphics card spec is yet for their device. So I'm kind of just holding off until they do that. So there you go. So that's the PC specs. So moving on, does anybody know about Space Race? So David Braben did a YouTube.
Oh yes, we've seen this one. It's actually quite funny. It's pretty obviously there's him and somebody else having a run around a hostile base, obviously doing a lap of honor, seeing who can get round there first. I can see so many people just looking at this going, "Oh, we want to do that now." It's one thing that did surprise me is how much they were under fire while going round there. So yeah, I think shields on full if you want to do that one.
Yeah,
and
it
I also
reminded
think
me
they
of
had.
like. Sorry, carry on.
I think they also had developer invincible mode on as well.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
Well, that probably
their
why
shields
then.
weren't going down at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it reminded me of Need for Speed: The Run, where I don't know if any of you played that one. I think I played it in my capacity as a journo. But there was a couple of levels in that where you were driving along and there was some police helicopter that was just strafing all the cars on the ground. So you had to sort of try and drive under underpasses, things, rather than staying out in the open. It looks pretty similar. I have to say, it reminds me of something, that them racing around that. I wanted to say Wipeout, but it wasn't quite Wipeout. There used to be a futuristic racing game, I think it was on the PlayStation, where you had these kind of big four-wheel drive space buggies, and you were tearing around a space station. And it looks a bit like that.
Yeah, I'm still of the opinion this is very Battlezone-like for me, which I don't have any complaints about whatsoever.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just curious because they said they were racing around a station. I mean, I didn't see anything in terms of the heads-up display which indicated a formal racing mode. You know, there was nothing gamey about the race, which I'm in two minds about. There's a part of me quite likes the idea that you could just decide to make a race of your own
Yeah.
and just pick a location and say, you know, first person to complete 4 laps is the winner kind of thing. Certainly in terms of community events, that would be amazing. But there's another part of me that thinks, actually, I'd quite like the game to recognise official racetracks in some way. Don't know, maybe make like illegal base races missions for some of the pirate stations or something like that.
You
Might
can't
they
see
wanna
that coming
televise-
in as CQC mode or something.
Yeah, I was going to say something like that would go down well in CQC. You know,
Yeah, but I'm saying this as someone that doesn't really like CQC and doesn't really like the fact that CQC is a completely different, hermetically sealed environment from the main game. I'm talking about doing something that actually adds to my commander experience. And if I go to a pirate station and they say, hey, we want to make some money by televising illegal base races, if you go and compete, we'll pay you. For me, that's immersion and that's part of my overall game experience. If they tag something on the side and say, this is Elite Dangerous, the racing module, I probably wouldn't fire it up for more than 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, I agree. You know, I was really hoping CQC was going to be kind of folded into the main game, and it would be like you kind of described, that a mission would be take part in a championship or something. But they didn't do that, so it's a bit of a swing and a miss.
Well, personally, I prefer the way it is set up because that means that I can dip into CQC at any time. I don't have to fly to a particular base in a particular system, which would take me out of my way, especially if I'm on my way to Sagittarius A.
Yeah, I guess it does give it that kind of casual element like that. It is more accessible, but I think that, you know, as a game goes, I mean, for me, Elite and Frontier, it was all about progression, and so I'm just addicted to progressing in terms of how much cash I've got or what rank I have, and the whole time I'm playing CQC, I'm thinking, oh, I could be in the main game making more money, and I'm just, you know, playing CQC instead. So it's more of a distraction. Whereas if it's folded into the main game and it was a way to kind of monetize it and make more cash from it, then I wouldn't mind playing it so much.
But there is a way to make cash from it. Every time you win a match, you get some credits, and those credits go into your main balance.
Ah, well, yeah.
But
I
I know
have
what
to
you
admit,
mean.
John, I'm with you that I really loved playing CQC in the beta, where it was just like a little silly little game mode. But now that I'm back in non-beta for CQC, I'm too busy in the real world not doing CQC.
Real
Because,
world,
you know,
inverted
I'm
commas.
doing real world space stuff rather than CQC world space stuff, and it just doesn't feel like the main game for me, which I think is a shame because I had a blast doing it.
Well, maybe it could be an option that they could add a kind of docking station where you could join it at CQC at a later point. They have said that they were wanting to add structures in in from CQC into the main game, which I think everybody would like to see. So if they put one of these arenas around Lave and you dock at it, that means that you can go into CQC without having to go into come out of your main game. This is one of the things that I think I met up with Void Sun today at lunchtime, and he said something about immersion junkies, and I think everybody is beginning to turn into one.
Well, there is that. I mean, one of the issues in the game, I didn't think it was going to be a problem initially when people were talking about all the players were going to go their own way and it was going to be really hard to bump into other players. I was hoping the game was going to deal with it better and kind of making focal points so that people would come across each other. And at the moment, you see that by things like community goals, I guess, and also I guess Power Play tries to address that as well, maybe kind of indirectly. But also, if they had CQC as something you had to fly to a system, you'd be creating another focal point, and so you would be interacting with other players as you're traveling to and from the system or whatever. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it.
I mean, I know in other games, before they introduced the ability to jump into battle zones before, or war zones rather, before, just from anywhere in the world, there was actually a really nice community of people just standing outside the war zone, shooting the shit while they waited for their war zone to pop up. And that was actually quite good fun. Even just the waiting and talking bit rather than just the actual hacking slash bit.
Yeah, it's a bit easier to explain away in like a fantasy game, because you've got things like teleportation or portals and that people just jump in and they end up in a battleground. But I guess you can't really do that with what is basically a hard science game.
Yeah, but then we know that CQC, you're not actually sitting there in space. CQC is basically run in a simulator. We know that from their descriptions of it, which is why we can just play it from anywhere. But I just want to, I want to almost have to dock up and put my Oculus Rift on or something like that, sitting in my Type 9, but I put my Rift on and suddenly I'm in a Fed fighter. And that would be... It wouldn't help with the community spirit, but it would at least feel like you're actually in the real game, rather than having to come out of the game, go into the CQC menu, and it's a completely different game mode rather than in my real thing.
Yeah, it is quite jarring. Okay, so...
Can I just say, because I had to Google it for my sanity, the game I was thinking of was Roll Cage. For anybody who remembers that.
I think I do, actually. It's quite scary. But then again, I do seem to be quite old.
Okay. Also in this newsletter, there were some screen grabs of the new Horizons that's coming our way. I mean, okay, they're just screen grabs of ships and buggies flying around, and it's kind of hard to get anything out of it. I seem to remember when we first started the podcast, we'd spend like quarter of an hour on a picture discussing what we can get out of it, but we seem to have lost that ability now.
Okay, so that first picture, what do we think those things are? They look like mining things to me. So that looks like it's. Does this mean we're maybe going to get the ability to mine on planets and bring back those things that you guys used back in Frontier?
Well, yeah, I think that's one thing that nobody's really been discussing is the MB4 mining unit. Now that we can land on planets,
and that looks like they're mining units. And if they are, then that's more potential gameplay. So who knows what's actually going to happen? Are we going to be able to hack those mining units and steal the stuff that Collins spent like an hour laying down, and then I can come along a little bit later and say, yoink.
What you've turned into Shaggy.
Always.
Something you guys didn't mention that I noticed in the little race video, something that was actually a bit of a bugbear for me. was you know they've had all these wonderful Horizons videos when you watch the buggies and you can see the other buggy how it catches some air. I know all the lingo. It catches some air and then it comes down and it has that wonderful sort of suspension compression and you see it kind of bounce slightly. And then in the Horizons race video, as he comes up the ramp into the enemy base, he catches some air and then it lands flat. And I thought, no, it should bounce. You should get that kind of at least a sort of dip, as then you come back up to your main centre, and then you carry on round the corner. And without that bounce, it's going to feel really quite strange.
Not necessarily, because it all depends on the gravity of that planet. They just might have got it absolutely right.
No, I disagree.
Not only that, but also your thrusters, though. Yes. If I am literally kissing with my thrusters,
you guys
I don't
are
need to
absolutely
bounce.
bull crapping the hell out of it.
If you're bouncing, you're failing.
No, you've got to have compression on those. Doesn't matter about the level of gravity. If you're going in that downward motion, then there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction from the springs in your suspension. That is going to cause a slight spring effect, not a flat land. It's just not going to go boom and then you're going to be perfectly still. You're always going to have a little bit of give.
It's just that you might not go back up again.
I tend to disagree. What happens if you manage to get just a couple of taps on your thrusters just at the right moment?
Yeah, that's going to happen.
I don't know how.
If you can actually fly, drive, whatever it is.
No, it needs bounce. It needs to have a little bit of bounce to add that. Let's face it, in gameplay, there's loads of decisions that they have made that have been all about the gameplay and that factor. And in order to have that little bit of gameplay factor, it requires that little bit of bounce. And that little bit of bounce adds a little degree of lack of control, so that when you have that kind of wonderful air-caught circumstances and then you come down, you're going to not have any steering for a bit of time while you get that grip on the actual ground again. So I mean it's one of those things where your wheels aren't touching the ground, you cannot turn other than using your thrusters. But if you use your thrusters, you're still going to have that wonderful kind of sliding, kind of drifting effect, which is awesome. But then you want the bounce. You need that bounce to give you that sense of I'm on the ground again, right there, and off I go. Just to give you that
I think that we need to ask Commander Remclip as to whether or not he wants to bounce a 747 or not.
He does bounce 747s on regular occasions.
Actually, serious point. I did. Apparently, they do. If it's raining, apparently they do deliberately bounce a 747 and whatever to basically to go through the layer of water on the runway. So they're not hydroplaning. So apparently they do deliberately land them a bit harder when it's raining.
They've got to splash it.
Meanwhile,
sorry, yes, sounds tangents.
Well, we're looking at the other photos there. Since I must admit, I think that I didn't seem to be that excited about the first two, but the last two. Well, obviously you've got a low altitude canyon run, and you're looking at that thinking trench run. But have you noticed the ships that are involved in it? They're all Federal dropships, which are all pretty big ships, and there's a Corvette. I feel sorry for anything that's going to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, isn't it?
Well, if they're Federal pilots, they'll probably all crash into the mountain at the end of it anyway.
Oh, no. They're not going to do a fuzzer.
So yeah, to be honest, I was more impressed with that because that looks cool. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what I can do with my ship on the planets. Everyone seems very preoccupied with the buggies, but it'd be kind of cool if I can, go into battle in my ship and take out some buggies with it. Although I think they have said that I won't be able to target ground units with my ship, so I'll have to use fixed weapons, I guess.
Yeah, your weapons are going to be fixed as the because you can't track them. So gimbaled weapons have got no effect; they just fire straight forward.
Be interesting to see how effective missiles are then, like dumbfire.
A dumbfire, I think, would be quite bad. Plus, also, you could also have the added advantage of dropping. Someone asked this in a previous question, where you could drop cargo from your ship at low level and have a bouncing bomb effect on people. that will still do kinetic damage to another ship, or another buggy rather. And if anybody would like to head over to Slough and drop off a whole load of bio waste at a low level, they're quite welcome to.
Love you, Kate.
We'll get a reply out of her at one point.
Okay, so I'll move on if none of you got anything more to say about the pictures. Has anybody been watching the Educated Ed series? This is something I haven't seen.
Oh, you missed a treat last week. It was fantastic.
Oh, I've missed, and that's the one that I've got to catch up on now. I've watched them all up till now, but Grant, you better go ahead then.
Okay, so yes, obviously, Educating Ed has been an awful lot of him joining some of the community groups out there, which is fun. Just sort of give them a highlight, also to show what they do as a player group and get involved. As I said, he's coming to the Hutton Truckers at some point, 3rd of December. So last week he was working with Canon Interstellar Research Group. Now this is a group that are very much interested in the scientific sides of Elite Dangerous, and to have a look at various different parts of the exploration side of things, as well as mostly the unknown artifact has kept them very, very busy. If you want to have a look at their various different group information, you can by visiting canon.science, and that will take you to their website. Now it's CANONN.science, and it will take you there. And what happened was whoever Ed had liaised with in the group sent him a Canon Interstellar Research Group pack full of various items that he might need as a budding young apprentice scientist, which involved this amazing red plastic overall. It made him look like he was Breaking Bad. It was hysterical, along with safety goggles and gloves. And so Ed, and I tip my hat to the man for just
And a tinfoil hat.
Yeah, and just for getting so deeply involved and just going for it. Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And instantly they went off in the hunt for a nice UA to show what it's like, and then it had to bring it back to their research centre so that they could do some more analysis on it, and all the time streaming the point from when he went to the pickup, and had all the advice about watching the damage to your modules. If it starts hitting on your power module, then you could be in some trouble. And it was just so nice to sort of get a group. Now I know that Canon Research were worried that it would be difficult to have a stream that was interesting, but no, they did it. It was brilliant. It was a good laugh. It was fantastic. And Ed looking like some kind of rabid Smurf was brilliant. So yeah, do go and check their stuff. They've got a council, and they've got a nice little history page. The recruitment service centre, if you want to go and join up with them as well, and their notes. And so they've been working hard on trying to crack the mysteries of the Elite Dangerous universe. And I'm thinking they're hoping to be those, people that can make that first contact with the Thargoids when they appear.
Mm. Oh, it's all gone quiet.
It has, yeah. No, obviously, I mentioned science, and John's going to sleep.
Sorry, I was just having so much fun watching Commander Baxter fly his geobag around. I love its swivelly little muzzles. I think they look so awesome.
I'm just busy watching someone nudge Grant quite a lot. That's quite funny.
Yeah, I'm getting battered now. I know that this week, Ed is out again with another group. Now, I'm just going to try and scroll up and see which group it was again. Anyone got that bit handy? It's in the notes.
I believe it's Hungary.
Aye?
I believe, isn't it the Hungarian community? Yeah, EDH.
Yes, the Hunger Games. That's into yeah. No.
Oh, it's the Hunger Games, is it?
No, the Hunger Games is gone.
No. That's
something else.
That's another event.
Oh. ED Hungary. Yeah. So I don't know if that's the country. I assume it's the country.
Yeah,
tune
I
in
think
on
it
Thursday
is
to find
Hungary.
out.
Yeah, definitely tune in. But looking at the newsletter, it's ED Hungary. So there you go. Check that out.
Excellent.
Yeah, sorry. The reason I wasn't speaking was because I was muted. Rookie mistake. But I did just start talking about the HCS voice pack. So Frontier are actually getting quite behind this now, obviously, by promoting it in the newsletter. And now you can also get a voice pack featuring Verity, which is the actual voice that they used in the game Elite Dangerous for your ship. So if you're one of those immersion, what do you call them, Colin?
Oh, immersion junkies.
Yeah, immersion junkies. Then I guess you're going to have to get that one.
Yeah. You'll also notice that on the picture there's a little icon at the bottom right, and it looks as if it's an official Elite sanctioned product now.
Oh, okay. So well done to those guys.
It has to be Elite official if they're going to actually, use Verity and call her the voice of Elite Dangerous. You cannot do that. That's pretty serious IP trespassing if you don't have it. But I think it's awesome to see. I mean, because the one thing that really has brought the HCS voice packs right to the forefront is, of course, Kate Russell and Mad Dog streams with Doris and Derek the Dalek.
Yeah.
Which always, it just cracks me up. He says, "Hi, Derek," and I go, "Pass it, whatever, off, I'm busy." And it's hysterical. And they have, showcased these voice packs through their streams for a number of times, to the point that there's a lot of people out there that it gives them that added company in game. That just gives them a giggle and keeps them sort of awake for those long journeys out to Sajay. But I think they're fantastic. I think it's a real level of immersion, and I think having the voice of the Elite Dangerous game in your cockpit could be extremely off-putting. I really do hope that they have put in some little tricks and treats to throw the commanders who are just flying along doing nothing, and they hear this wonderfully authentic voice going, "Thargoid presence detected." And you're like, what? Shit!
Well, I'm not so sure about you. You were mentioning the IP rights. I take it Verity is actually a professional voice actress. So technically,
Verity is Jim Croft's wife.
right?
Jim
so,
Croft being head of audio, isn't he, or something like that?
Like a photographer or an actor or something. You own the rights to your performance, I guess. So I don't think there was anything stopping her doing something like this without Frontier's approval.
For example, if they, and forgive me for not knowing her name, the lady behind the GLaDOS voice from the amazing, and that was me stalling for time trying to remember the hell of the name of the game. No.
What, Portal?
Portal.
Yes, thanks.
Jeez, come on, Grant. How can you not know Portal?
I know Portal. I love the game. It's just the name went out of my head. I came up with all kinds of other names that begin with a P. However, if she was to record a voice pack for the Portal game, and although they might call it something like, I don't know, Samson or something along those other ways, it'd be very difficult to say that it's not an infringement of their IP, other than the fact that it's officially licensed, so there's no issue. It's hurrah!
And Mindwipe is telling us it's Ellen McLean who's GLaDOS.
Thank you.
I know I've seen her at a I've seen her on YouTube at a convention, and she strikes me as a really awesome woman who seems up for a laugh. And she just came across really, really well in the convention and in the discussion, and the crazy stupidness that she did afterwards as well.
Well, I do know one thing. They tried to use GLaDOS in Pacific Rim. They had the aforementioned actress all lined up, but they wouldn't allow her to use the Portal 2 filter that they put on her voice. So her voice is in there, but with a different filter on it.
I'm just seeing, I've kicked off shouts of, "Oh yeah, absolutely, we need a GLaDOS voice pack."
Uh-oh. There you go, voice packs. No charge for that idea.
I'm going to move on from the newsletter 100 because we need to discuss the third lands, and I think this might end up being the main discussion for the show, seems as we don't have anything else. So, should we talk about the Fer-de-Lance and the upgrade in 1.5? Colin, what's happened to it?
Yes. Well, what's happened with the Fer-de-Lance is that they have decided that it's a bit underpowered. So they've gone and upgraded the power plant and the thrusters that you can put on the ship, which, in my humble opinion, from flying about, just gives it that extra bit of kick it needed to be the top line killer craft to fly, in my opinion. The Fer-de-Lance always has had a problem with heat management, and also, let's be honest, it didn't turn too well, and you could put all these lovely beam lasers on it, but it would just run out of juice so quickly, or you had to go into power management a lot in order to get the most out of it. It was a bit of a challenge to manage those options. And when people just flew around in vultures, it just didn't seem to be the scary craft it was supposed to be. What I would say is that now that these modifications have been made to it, it is now the scary craft it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I always felt that against one vulture, obviously you had the upper hand, but if you came across a wing of 3 of them, they really did just smack you up a lot of the time, and you didn't really have much of a chance if they were, well ranked. So I'm glad to see that they've done that. I haven't noticed it myself, even though I've flown a Fer-de-Lance, but I think that might be because I don't have a Class A power plant or thrusters yet. So that's probably why I haven't noticed it. I mean, is the upgrade only noticeable on the Class A stuff?
No, it's noticeable. Well, it's noticeable on anything more than Class C, because as soon as you start moving to Class C and above, because they've moved it up an entire grade, or so you don't have a Class 5 anymore. You have a Class 6.
Right.
So as soon as you're a C or above, you've got more power than you ever had before, and more power, better weapons. One thing that is just as bad, though, is they haven't upgraded the frameshift drive slot, which means that it's still got the terrible downside of a short hyperspace range, which it's one of these balancing issues which I think just suits the Fer-de-Lance fine.
Well, it is a fighter, so you can't have everything. So it's not too bad getting around. Like, for instance, I find that if I'm going to be flying a stupidly long distance, I'll just remove the weapons to increase the jump range, and then buy them when I get to wherever I'm going. So it's not too bad. But,
yeah. I mean, they have also altered its heat dissipation, so that means it doesn't heat up as much. Because if anybody has ever tried fuel scooping in a Fer-de-Lance, you don't want to do it.
So does that mean that I might want to try out the 3, like some gimbaled beam lasers on there again?
Well, no, it's 4, because it's 4 medium hardpoints.
Oh, 4, that was it.
Yeah, you get 4 medium hardpoints and a big, huge one. So that's where your plasma generator goes.
I don't suppose they've improved the kind of, what do you call it, the visibility of the bottom turret at all? Because I really struggle with that.
Well, the what you mean, the actual bottom hardpoint? The
actual placement of it, yeah. It's
no, they haven't actually changed any of the placements on the ship, so you've still got the same placements. But to be honest with you, I've never bothered with turrets on that thing or anyway, and that big bottom slot is you've really got to hold it back for the big hitter that you're going to need.
So what do you usually stick on your bottom?
For now, well, let's just say one massive plasma generator is also the best way to go.
Now you've got more power.
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to disagree there. I've got a great big cannon on my bottom.
This is going to go very badly, isn't it?
My cannon's gimbaled.
And Ben, what was it you showed that person that interdicted you on the way to Lave? Did you show them the end of your gun, or did you turn tail and flash your bottom at them as you ran away screaming for mummy?
No, I actually... Okay, so I deliberately headed off to Shinata Desert to pick myself up a furry lance for flying around this evening just to try it out. And at the time I was flying an Imperial cutter, and I did actually get interdicted by a certain commander in TOC, I think it was, who was testing, I'll be nice, his furry lance. And I was like, please don't interdict me, please don't have a fight. I'm in a rush. I want to basically pick up furry lance for Lave radio, try it out. I don't have time for this. And he was like, well, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to fly here in a hauler. To which and then he decided to start shooting you. And at that point I thought, okay, screw you and bring it. I made that dirty, rotten player killer turn tail and run. So he was the one running, not me.
I think that tells you, Grant, eh?
Yeah.
Blank yes. But that nicely segues me in, and I've been flying around with furry lance this evening, and it does fly very, very nicely now. And I don't think the jump range is that bad. It's about 14 light years minus, which that's quite acceptable.
Yeah, well, now that you can put bigger equipment on it, though, that more tonnage.
Yeah, but I'm in a beta build, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've got my jump ranges. I've just got a galaxy map, 14.25 light years.
Oh, not too bad.
So, and I've got a fairly big fuel scoop because I didn't bother with any cargo space, so I just shoved a fuel scoop in one of my cargo racks.
I am going to have
it's
much
very
fun
shiny.
Editing your words. I have a really big bottom. It's going to be awesome.
Hang on, Grant. I have a really big bottom. My cannon is very large.
Now you're just spoiling it.
Let me just shoot you with my great big cannon. My weapon is gimbaled.
If he says anything about helicoptering, I don't want to know.
Okay. Wouldn't that be turreting?
Moving on.
Okay, so we're done on the third lance changes.
Well,
I know we focused on the third lance. That there hasn't been any other ships that have been updated in 1.5.
Well, not really. They put a couple of fixes in for the corvettes, and also you've got missing discovery scanners have gone back into the Asp Scout, Clipper, and Federal assault ship. But apparently that's about it, really.
Have you guys actually discussed the new ships and your opinions of them?
Oh, yeah, I think we did that last week. We went through them one by one.
Okay, fine. Well, I won't rehash that then. But all I can say is I'm disappointed with the cutter. It's like flying a cow. But it's not a Type 9. That's I was kind of really disappointed. Am I the only person who had issues undocking the thing?
Oh, well, there was
that was a bug.
There was
That
a
was
bug
a
with
bug.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has that been fixed?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I might try it again. But yeah, once I did get out of the space station, it was just so slow.
Well, so it was slow to turn, but straight line speed was fine.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people have started looking at it as a really powerful trading ship because it's got so much space, and I think that's maybe what it's going to end up being.
Was that going to be the Imperial Trader instead of being the big hitter for the Imperials? Because when you compare it to the Corvette, you can outrun a Corvette using one, but you can't outfight it, and you certainly can't outturn it.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing is as a combat ship, the Corvette really does have the upper hand, and I guess that there'll be some Imperial aligned people that'll be upset by that. But then again, if you'd looked at the previous, look at the Clipper, it's about top end speed, and so it was kind of to be expected that they would go with that again, with the cutter. So I'm not going to be flying one myself. It's too big, too cumbersome. I think I'd rather stick to the Courier and the Clipper if I want something bigger. But then again, now I've tried out the Fer-de-Lance, the Clipper just doesn't get a look in either.
I mean, I know you like your pew pew, but I do think I might end up actually trading my Anaconda in for the Clipper. Sorry, for the Cutter, because it's still got a reasonable jump range, even with 800 odd tons of cargo in there.
Yeah.
And that's a that's almost double the cargo space that an Anaconda's got.
Yeah. As I said, that's why it seems to be the favourite. People are looking forward to it in the main
Yeah.
game because it's going to be the new trading ship.
Which is a shame as well, to be honest.
Yeah, because one of the things I was hoping for was seeing, a kind of mini Damocles video with with players with cutters on one side, and people with corvettes on the other. I don't think that's going to happen, because basically most of the cutters will be decked out as traders, and well, we'll have to wait and see what happens at some point.
Well, unless there's going to be some federal in-faction fighting where everyone's just in corvettes killing each other.
Now, Mindwipe is saying apparently it is actually, if you've got the right build, apparently it is a good combat ship that can outmatch a corvette depending on how you're doing. But I guess it's on a one-on-one.
Well, from what I've
see.
seen, from what I've seen so far in the beta, where I've seen other players go at it, I think normally the cutter there's been a lot more cutters than there have been corvettes.
Yes.
And because I think everybody likes the look of the thing, but yeah, I think you need, if you're on about pilots of equal ability, you're looking at maybe 1.5 cutters balancing out one corvette.
Sounds reasonable to me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my brother Oz, he's big into the big ships. He had the Clipper while I was still running around in a courier because I preferred the maneuverability. But even he tried out the cutter and said it's just not fun to fly as a combat ship. But I'm thinking, well, it was in the beta, so he'd have had the cash to kit it out fully as well. So it's not just a case of he had a bog standard one. He would have upgraded everything. So he was just a bit let down, but he's fallen in love with the Fer-de-Lance as well. So I think we're going to see a lot more of them until they bring the Nerf bat in.
Well, no, I think that's about right, because I do think that the Fer-de-Lance has to be the top of the range fighter. If you want, it always has been. Even in the old Elite things, the one thing you didn't want to go up in your single pulse laser Cobra was if you suddenly saw Fer-de-Lances coming after you. But yeah, I think the best fighter has to be the Fer-de-Lance until obviously the Thargoids turn up.
Okay. Well, if we're all done on that, then we'll just briefly mention the David Braben's been quite busy lately, hasn't he? Producing sneak peek videos. He hasn't really been that hands-on up until recently, has he? He's kind of done the old dev video, and then he's kind of left it to the community team. But yeah, he's been quite excited by Horizons by the look of it, and recording a lot of videos and releasing them on his own YouTube channel. It is his YouTube channel, isn't it? It's not just.
It is, yes.
Yeah. So he seems to be very excited by it. So he landed a vulture on a planet, then had a run around in his buggy, and then obviously he did that illegal racing one that we talked about earlier. So if you haven't seen them, check out David Braben on YouTube, and yeah, they're quite interesting.
Not only that, but did you notice the time that he posted those videos, or he posted the?
No, I didn't. What time was it?
23:15 on Sunday.
Oh. So he's in the office as well.
David is in the office, or I'm assuming David's in the office at 11:15 in the evening on a Sunday night. I mean, we know the developers have been burning the midnight oil, but if David's been right there along with them, then full kudos to him.
Yeah, but to be honest, he's put himself on the testing team, hasn't he? So he's just playing games all night.
He's just playing the game. But I suspect, I might be wrong here, but it feels like he's basically taken over some of the not taking over the stuff, but as you say, he's so excited and he's trying, but he's releasing all this information because everybody else is so blooming busy trying to get the crunch done. So he's maybe the only one who's actually got the time to make these videos and release them, and talk about them and things.
If you look at his Kaleri Oasis video, there's definitely a degree more bounce in that buggy, but it's not quite right.
Fancy enough for you.
Not quite right. Just, I don't know, it flattens out too quickly for my liking.
Well, obviously, he's got sports suspension. Obviously.
Oh dear, bounce that buggy.
We have to wait until the beta's out, and then we can all make our own decisions on whether or not it's bouncy enough.
Boing, 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 boing.
Well, I mean, looking at the buggies already, I mean, I haven't been able to control one myself, but they seem to be really hard to handle looking at it because people seem to spin out far too easily. So, I guess they need some really decent suspension on there because if it's bouncy, you're going to land, and as soon as you try and turn to avoid something, if you're just landing, you're going to end up, flipping your buggy, I guess.
But remember, you do have full thrusters on your SRV as well.
Okay,
so you're not just wheels, you're like a mini spaceship as well.
Better to flip it than to plant your wheels 2 inches into the ground.
No, sure. But the thing is, you basically got a kind of a flight assist on it, haven't you? And I guess you don't really have total control, and so if they have kind of implemented some sort of a flight assist to make sure that you don't hit the floor too hard, then that might explain why there's not so much bounce.
So we just rename Grant Zebedee and just be done with it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he wants some bounce, and maybe in the future you'll be able to kit out your buggy, kind of like you do in GTA, and you'll be able to put some lowrider suspension on there or something, and you might be able to get the bounce that he wants.
It is definitely a degree more. There's definitely a much more natural kind of level of bounce in this particular video. Definitely is a slight improvement on the previous video, so that's good to see.
Out of interest, do you have a female avatar, Grant?
No, I don't give a. That's not
so
where
you don't
bounce
want that
is
kind
important.
Of bounce.
No.
Okay. Just checking.
Saggy beer bellies bobbling in 0G.
I have a female avatar, but I haven't even thought once about bounciness of buggies, so it's just you, Ben.
Yes.
It's all in your mind. Okay, so we talked about the videos, and we kind of already talked about the Hungarian or the Hunger Games.
No, that was a different thing.
Oh, so it's a completely different thing now. Okay.
Yes, yeah. It was a Hunger Games style event in Elite Dangerous, which was organised by, I've got to be careful with this, TIIQ, in support of the Princess Margaret Cancer Trust, and included most of the famous community streamers, such as Kate Russell, Fiery Toad, basically in a private group, and the good old Highlander rules of there must be only one at the end. And it was quite enjoyable to watch. And of course, I'm not quite sure how much money they made, but it went down very well, I do believe.
Okay. Do we have any community questions? So, for instance,
let me look up.
If we go to the Lave Radio, because Chris Jarvis was kind enough to put out a call for questions, or at least he told people that we were streaming tonight. But do we actually have any questions? I don't think we do.
No, we do.
We got nothing on Twitter.
Nope.
Oh dear. Okay.
No one
well,
wants to talk to us.
well, that makes for an easier show.
What about the Lave Radio chat?
Oh yeah, Lave Radio chat. Let's not forget.
Any
about
news on the HTC Vive price?
Oh, I tell you what, as soon as I find out, I will let you know, Commander Kurlek, because I want one. I think they've said that they're going to launch it on the 8th of December, but there'll be a limited number of them. So
Okay.
I'm probably not going to get one until after Christmas. But I'm hoping before then they will at least release a price and what your system requirements are going to have to be. So I can safely say that as soon as I find out, I will be posting a link on Facebook everywhere because I'm quite excited myself. So any other questions?
Well, we're just. I mean, I don't think it was enough to really have a massive conversation about, but just an interesting point to mark that roughly on this date, I'm not sure if it was today or if it was a couple of days ago, but it's the anniversary of the Elite Dangerous launch party.
It was 2 days ago, wasn't it? It was the 22nd.
Yeah. And many of us were lucky enough to be there, and it's just nice to kind of reflect on kind of what a great community event that was, and what a great event that was, by Frontier to invite so many fans to. And I just think, there were loads of things for me that were a highlight of that event. I think, part of it has to be the big reveal of the scale Cobra model was pretty impressive. Drinking in the bar with people was fun.
It always is.
Yeah. Oh, and getting to read my Tales from the Frontier entry in front of the crowd was awesome.
If I remember rightly, you
didn't
managed to actually record some audio with David Braben at the bar. Did you actually ever release that?
No. What happened was David Braben. There was a queue of people to meet David Braben or to get stuff signed, and I thought I'd get a shout out for Lave Radio, so I just went and did a little 2-minute recording with him, which is still in the Lave Radio drive somewhere. I mean, there's not much. It's just his response to the party and David Braben saying, "My name's David Braben and you're listening to Lave Radio." But every time I mention that we own this recording, everybody seems to just forget and not use it. But it's in the Lave Radio drive. I challenge you to find it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there, so it would be a challenge.
I do have it somewhere.
Yeah. Have we ever used that sting? Have we ever used that sting of David Braben saying, "I'm David Braben, you're listening to Lave Radio"?
I'm sure we've listened to something like that at some point before the Tuesday night show.
I don't think we are necessarily always rehearsed enough in our live broadcasts to specifically have sections where we play in shout-outs.
Yeah, because yet again tonight I haven't put any adverts into it.
No.
So sorry about that. If you had them queued up, Grant.
Yeah.
I've always got them queued
Anybody
up.
else?
Should we do an advert before we do the shout-outs then, so everybody can write down who we need to shout out?
It's all right. I've already been filling
did anyone
it out.
else
I think
have
we've
any
been
thoughts about
filling
the
it out,
launch
actually.
party?
Okay, fine. Go on then, guys. Give out your shout-outs.
Right, Colin, do you want to do the normal commands and I'll do the betas?
Okay, right. Just let me bring up my list of people that are hanging around Lave Station at the moment. We've got Barry Shiro, Commander Cassius, Dr. Toxic, May Lalou, Commander Psychocal, Ulrich Octavius, Ventura _, and we've got an Anaconda and an Imperial Courier, which are moving about so fast I can't lock on and find out who they are, which isn't helpful.
You've got Dr. Toxic there, you've got Nordlicht, you've got Stephen McCreary, Lev Von Shadow, John Splint, and then I think that's all the ones that are in our instance. There's quite a few hollow squares actually in the open there.
Yeah, I must admit it's quite packed around Lave Station in Live at the moment. Yeah. It's the most I've seen around Lave Station for a while.
And it's busy in beta as well. We've got Commanders Dissington, Commander Azrion, Commander Arksea Jumper, Commander Babster in his lovely little keelback, and Commander Slapshot and Nexus Reject are both in their lovely, great big Federal Corvettes.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad I missed out on last week's episode because I did want to talk about some of the new ships and what I thought of them. The keelback in particular, I just love. And that's going to be
so dinky, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as I said,
I'm glad I'm not the only one that likes the keelback.
Yeah, no,
I got the impression I was the only one that was enjoying it.
No,
well, that's the one that I haven't actually played around with yet. I've gone and tested the big ships, but I've yet to go in and give the keelback a proper attempt.
It's basically a T6 that can defend itself. That's essentially it.
Yeah, and you don't seem to sacrifice too much space on it either, considering what it is. And yeah, as soon as
I
it
don't know
gets
what you got
released,
yours to. I got to about 72 tons cargo space. I don't know about you, John.
I think it was like 76. So yeah, it's about that.
Dr. Toxic would like to say hello to Commander Thane.
Oh, hello, Dr. Toxic. Dr. Toxic was awesome. When I did my 12-hour escape velocity stream, Dr. Toxic bailed me out when I was interviewing Amy and jumping around and completely neglected to keep an eye on my fuel level. And basically just came within like a star of running out of fuel. And Dr. Toxic managed to chuck me over some fuel canisters. So that was very awesome.
Babster's got a big shout out he wanted to put out to Commander Vanguard of the Frontier support team, who has spent a number of days helping him recover all the data that he lost from his GIMP run after a little bug destroyed his ship. Now that's an amazing feat of assistance and possibly creating a rather large rod for Frontier's back going forward for the next commanders that have bugs and crash out, because yeah, I know there's a lot of people that haven't been able to get any data recovered at all by Frontier support. So yeah, big shout out to Commander Vanguard. Excellent work.
Okay, well, unless anyone else has got anything to add, I'm going to wrap up the show for this week. Okay, that's it for another episode of Lave Radio. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, then you can email us info@laveradio.com. You can find us on facebook.com/laveradio, or you can tweet us @laveradio. You can join the Skype chat channel by adding Fozza101 to your Skype contacts. I think every time I host, I ask, are people still using that? And the answer is yes. So there still seems to be a lot of people you can talk to if you love Elite. You can join our TeamSpeak server, where there's commanders pretty much permanently hanging out from all over the world. You can find that at laveradio.teamspeak3.com. If you're listening live, you'll know that Lave Radio is recorded live on a Tuesday evening at 8:30, that's GMT, and streamed out on laveradio.com/live if you want to go straight to it on our website. So, thanks to Ben, Grant, Chris Jarvis, and Colin Ford, and thanks to everybody who's been listening live and in the chat room. So until next time, fly safe, and if you can't do that, fly dangerous.
Is your life like this?
Sounds like someone having an orange inserted.
You need a safe word.
Space can be lonely. I'm going to see the galaxy.
Ah, damn it. No worries, guys. Hold the fort for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.